I'm gonna try to go over here. Oh, you're on. Okay. You can start, Martha. I'll let you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and for choosing to spend your time with us this way today. My name is Martha Reeder with the Children's Trust Fund Alliance. The Alliance is the national membership organization for state children's trust funds. We have a great panel today to share with you about the Alliance Resiliency Project. I will be joined today by Kara Georgi, Lucretia Rose, and Sandra Collette. We will do our best to share the story of what really happened in this project. Each one of us has a piece of that story. In addition, 3 of our parent members have shared in interviews their perspectives. Together, we hope we can help you see the possibilities of what can happen when organizations partner with parents to help support their needs, both with social emotional support and concrete supports. At the end of our presentation, we will have some time for you to interact with our panel for questions and comments. The Children's Trust Fund Alliance has been able to provide a number of supports to families as a response to the impact that COVID-19 and the pandemic have had on families in the past 18 months. From the beginning, this project was based on strong partnerships between Alliance senior staff and parent members of the Birth Parent National Network, the Birth Parent Advisory Committee, and the Birth and Foster Parent Partnership. This was paired with critical support from Casey Family Programs. And as we share today, I'm going to ask you to just dream a little bit and consider how a strategy like this could work in your own communities. The diagram that you are seeing gives some details about the structure of the project. The leadership team was composed of Alliance senior staff. The advisory committee was especially helpful in the planning and development phase of the project, and it included parents from all 3 parent organizations as well as Alliance staff. The project team was a key part of the project, helping to plan and administer the 2 major components of the project, the weekly caring conversation calls and the touchpoint parents, who were available as individual peer support to parent members of the BPNN, the BPAC, and the BFBP. Parents made their own choice to connect to a touchpoint parent, sometimes for emotional support and sometimes for concrete or financial supports. Kara Georgi will share more about what kinds of concrete supports we had the opportunity to provide and the impact this had on families during this time just a little bit later. Always, when parent members connected with a touchpoint parent, relationships were formed. Sandra Collette served as a touchpoint parent, and in a moment, she'll be sharing her wonderful insights about the value of this role in providing flexible funding as a support for families. And each week, we had the privilege of beginning our week with a midday or late morning, depending on your time zone, connection with those that soon were to become a community. The project team planned, implemented, and debriefed the conversations, carrying significant threads of each conversation forward to the next week. These rich conversations created a culture where asking for help was valued and supported. Lucretia Rose will be sharing more about this in just a few minutes. I know you understand that crises do not come at convenient times, and our entire team was on the ready to help when the needs arose. This meant that help was as immediate as possible. This required an agile system, and we learned as we went along how to make that work. Sometimes it was a bit of a painful process. All of the parents serving in the project were compensated for their volunteer efforts with stipends and honorariums in order to enable them to commit their time and their energies to this work. I have one more thing to share with you before we hear from the real heroes, or in this case, sheroes of the project. I know that you know the principle of creating group agreements with any group as a basic understanding of what the norms of the group will be. This set of group agreements was created during the caring conversations, but it evolved as the group was creating the kind of community that worked best for them. These agreements express the heart of this parent-led team and the heart of the parents that were served in the project. The thoughts and ideas expressed here have become a kind of compass for all of us, helping us to stay focused on our North Star. You will hear more about each of these 4 major sections from our panel. Right now, let's hear from Tacoria Jones, who served as a touchpoint parent, share how these agreements anchored our work. Then Kara Georgi will share about the concrete support that was offered through the project. Thank you.
So when we think about growing relationships and connections, we're thinking about ways to latch on to each other, right? And to find value in that. And I do feel that those agreements helped us do that and helped us kind of anchor in a way to come together and to grow our network and have a safe space and have a place to be brave, rather. A place to step up, a place to say, this is what's happening in my life. And no, there was no judgment. No, there would be no pity parties. No, there would be no shaming. And know that you could stand up and be your authentic self and be supported.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kara Georgi, and for me, the heart of this project was the safe space where we made it possible for parents to be brave and asking for help. And when we think about concrete support, we're like, what does that actually mean? Like, what is that in the hands of parents and in the lives of children? And it was doing things like helping them get groceries. Should a parent get COVID and they can't get out? It was helping them with paying rent when they were out of work for a while and weren't having their steady income anymore. In some cases, it was helping them get gas for their vehicles so that they could get to work during COVID. For some, it was shelter during times of natural disasters, things like hurricanes, and helping to shift not just our parent members, but their whole family to a safer location where they could be warm, where they could be comfortable. It was helping with utility payments so that way lights could stay on. And when we think through these concrete supports, it was all about relationships, not for individuals, but relationships truly with families, where when we helped a parent, we saw that they needed help with school things. When all the schooling became virtual and helping their children to have technology to be able to use that's reliable and steady and consistent, or where we weren't having parents having to share multiple devices with just having one for multiple children. It was also helping them with employment, giving them access and opportunities to training where they could enrich their lives, looking at longer term, greater opportunities for themselves, even during a time like the pandemic. It was helping with home and car repairs when resources were limited, prices were skyrocketing, helping to remove those barriers, those stresses. Thinking through too, as this pandemic happened, our kids didn't stop growing. If anything, I feel like they grew faster and more. And so many of our parents, they needed additional supplies and access to clothes, shoes, things that were just basic necessities for their kids. But think of the hardship that feels for a parent when your kid is growing and you're just like, I can't take them to the store. Like they can't try different things on. We found ways around that. We found ways to get them what they needed. Then we think of things like help with dental bills. There's not a whole lot of support out there for families around dental needs. And very often insurance pays a small portion and the large majority falls on the parent's shoulders. And so those parents needed support with that. So that way they could use their funding and maximize their funding in the directions it was going. And then when you think about families being home more, that's a lot more wear and tear on the appliances, on the things around them in their day-to-day environment. And we helped bring things into homes like washers, dryers, stoves, so families would be able to stay strong. And when you're like, okay, Carol, like that's a lot of good stuff, but what does that really truly achieve? What does that mean? For a lot of families, it means hope. It's that bright little piece of light where we're like, wow, we had a need, we had the bravery to ask, maybe through tears running down our face. But we had that bravery to say, yeah, you know what, I really need help. And to have an organization and a team of people who truly just wanted to be there to care and show up and meet that need. It was about opportunities where we prevented hunger from happening, where we had people in our network who had medical conditions and needed specific dietary things. We were able to be there to help make sure they had those, being aware of allergies and other things, because sometimes food boxes didn't have what families needed. We needed to give them those extra pieces. We helped some families from being homeless. We gave them a warm, safe space. I distinctly remember one family in particular, right around the holiday time, when you think most things are shutting down, quieting down because everybody's buckling down. But this family was going to be homeless out on the streets, and we were able to put them up in a safe, warm space where they could stay together. Most importantly, where they could be safe. It was a space where we helped people feel valued, respected, not ashamed or diminished because they asked for help. If anything, celebrated because they had that bravery to say they needed it. We're able to explore employment possibilities, encourage our parent members to dream bigger in a time where it was really hard to dream. We were able to help families stay together because we all know time is precious with our kids. And through this project, we were able to gift that time in a way where families had less stress on their shoulders. When they sat down to play a game, they could be fully present in that moment with their children. It's also about less stress. And it's also about really making sure that they could connect in a time and space when there was a lot of disconnect feelings. And when I think about what this achieved, I initially was thinking about the parents in our network. What I didn't realize and fully understand now is it impacted the kids too. And so when I was thinking about the concrete supports, it made me think of Band-Aids, because we give kids Band-Aids all the time if there's challenges. But what I appreciated about this project is it wasn't a Band-Aid type of response. Instead, it wasn't just looking at what was right here for families. What were those emergent needs? It was talking about the relationships to really understand what was underneath those surface needs. Looking to see what else it was we could do to really build in long-term stability for these families. Ways where we would be able to really help them be a strong family, where they really could just feel human and not ashamed that they needed to ask for help, not worrying about what else was going to come next, but really dive in. What is right here, but what's beyond that? How can we really make sure you feel strong, stable, and secure as a family unit? If anything, all I can say is it was a gift to be able to really, truly step into relationships in such a special way. And I'm really excited to be able to share with you this one parent's perspective. And her name is Tiffany Kasanka, and she lives in Florida, and she's a sweet woman to get to know. And as she got going in our network and really understanding what it meant to ask for help, she had some great aha moments. And I'm looking forward to her being able to share those with you now.
So hi, my name is Tiffany Sanka, and I would love to share how genuine this space truly was and how they really wanted to connect and build those relationships with parents, right? To me, that's very important because sometimes the system forgets to really have that relationship with the community and with, parents, right? So to me, when I started seeing those relationships build, that trust getting built, it was different, right? And I had an experience because I went through the system. It was very traumatic, but then when I started getting involved and working with the system and having a chance to be a part of this caring conversation, I got connected to a touch point parent, which at first I was a little antsy and I didn't know what to expect because of my past trauma. But they made it where I felt comfortable, right? I felt comfortable to be honest of my feelings that I'm not sure if I could really ask for help. And I don't want strings to be attached if I do ask for help, but they made it okay to be human And they made it okay to ask for help without those strings being attached. So to me, that shows authentic relationship and a really caring relationship, because I truly got that support when I really needed it, and there was no fear behind it.
Imagine that. If all families, as they needed help, didn't have to worry about that fear, that judgment, if their strengths. And so when I think about this project and I think about the heart, I think of it's really what all families look for. Support sometimes. It's hard to raise children. It's hard to navigate different things as they come at us. And I think of how families just sometimes need to know that when that ask is made for help, it's met with a concrete support. And that even through tears, even through frustration, you can get help. You can have that space. And that space is really created, especially in the field of prevention, with people like all of you. It's about being inspired. It's remembering your why, that North Star that Martha talked about. It's about putting your heart into the work. Our hearts were deeply attached to so many members in our network, because it wasn't just somebody had this struggle and he had this need that needed to go met. It was this person that we care about, needed support, needed to know they were being thought of, cared for. And when that support came through, it wasn't just, here you go, problem solved, walk away. No, here's that support. How you doing? How are things? And then it was really making sure that anytime somebody had the bravery to ask for help, we celebrated it, we recognized it, we gave it space. And I really encourage you to think about, as we deliver services to families and we talk about prevention, families aren't individuals. Families are whole units. We have to start looking at, if there's one member in that unit that needs support, chances are there's a couple others, and those supports might look different. And that's okay. But when we open that space to let our hearts get connected to the work, where we find creative ways to meet needs as they come up, amazing things can happen. Lucretia, I'll let you go ahead and share a little bit more about the journey we've been on.
Thanks, Kara. So I had the opportunity today to share with you about our Caring Conversations part of the Resiliency Project. And for me, this really hits home because I really believe in the power of a peer-to-peer support network where parents are helping parents. I specialize in that here in my state of West Virginia. And it's just something that I'm really passionate about because it helped me so much. So the Caring Conversations were weekly 1-hour facilitated conversations using the Zoom platform. And over the course of 56 conversations, we had 205 unduplicated participants show up from 35 states. That is like phenomenal. They weren't all on the call at the same time. We averaged around 17 to 20 folks per call. But still, the fact that over the course of the 6 months that 205 people, attended is phenomenal. So the content for the calls was intentionally planned, and it was based on a continuous feedback loop between the project team and the members of the call. And the intent was to provide social and emotional support related to the COVID-19 pandemic, and to really help identify any additional needs for the parents who were participating. But it turned out to be so much more than that. One of the greatest barriers that we found for participants was overcoming the stigmas of asking for help. The Caring Conversations really helped create a space where asking for help was celebrated and even normalized. But the format was yet flexible enough to where even if we came that week with something that we were going to talk about and there was something else at hand, that we could push aside that topic for the week and talk about emerging things, such as the murder of George Floyd. So throughout these Caring Conversations, questions continue to surface. Questions like, what happens to families when the parents become ill during COVID? How does isolation affect parents and long-term effects for the children? What about racial injustice and inequality? How much stress can one family absorb and still be strong? The group went through various different stages of group development, and after the initial forming stage, they started to develop a sense of community. Shared leadership became a priority, and the members of the group began facilitating the calls and selecting the content for the discussion on their own. One of the outcomes that was displayed through the caring conversations is something that Martha had shared before. It's the group agreements. And although the group agreements in the grand scheme of things, this kind of shows you the culture of the whole resiliency project, they were created in the caring conversations. The participants of the caring conversations constructed these group agreements to illustrate how they chose to relate to each other during this time. Taking a closer look at these major components provide a better understanding of the far-reaching impact that the project had. The first section of our group agreements is the part that says, ensure all voices are heard and can share. Since the Monday conversations were the beginning of the week and kicked everybody's week off, it became a way for us to start making those connections at the beginning of the week. And it was really important that members had the opportunity for everyone to share if they wanted to. They always had the choice to pass or just be a listener. But those connections were really important. We used lots of different strategies, such as the chat box, large conversation, word clouds, polling, but we always did a weekly check-in that's asked folks how they felt like they were doing that week and in the last couple of days. We used a combination of breakout rooms and pairs at some times, but the group felt like it was really important for each member to take responsibility for their own ownership of their voices. The Provide Grace and Space section is exactly what it sounds like. Members wanted to ensure that everyone had the grace and space to grow and learn. Even when we were making mistakes in navigating uncharted waters together, members were naturally accepting and compassionate with one another. They've repeatedly expressed the importance of the freedom of expression without trying to fix things for one another. They truly valued the open forum in the caring conversations and placed high regard to listening. During a time when we were isolated from our friends and family and our colleagues, this team made sure that each person in the network knew that they were loved and cared for. Being mindful of impact versus intent comes from, being mindful of all assumptions, being mindful of how we choose to communicate with our words. It's not just enough to have good intentions. Everyone has good hearts and means well, but being really mindful that the words that you choose can have a larger impact on someone's life. It's choosing how you show up to those conversations. And the last part of our group agreements is building upon each other's strengths. Focusing on what is strong versus what is wrong really helps create a strong, safe environment for communities and families to thrive, not just strive to survive. And we really did a lot of this work by focusing on our strengths as parents. In order to do that, all the members of our caring conversations were supplied with a book called Strength-Based Parenting. And in this book, both children and parents received a code where they could take an assessment to figure out what their top 5 strengths were. The strengths-based approach and the language creates the perfect intersection between the strength-based approach from the protective factors framework. Members have shared with us how empowered they felt. For some folks, it was the first time they ever really recognized that they have natural strengths and talents, and that they were, good at something and they could use that towards things like building a better relationship with their child. Members have shared that their connection between them and their children have grown and become more meaningful, positive, and even enlightening in many ways. You'll see here that we polled our members quite often as part of the feedback loop about what they valued most and some things that they want to say about the caring conversations. So here's some of the quotes that they said. I need to continue coaching in strengths and continuing connections. This conversation is so inspiring. I look forward to this every week and I hate to miss one. Please never stop. I've enjoyed meeting new people and knowing that I am not alone. I love the connections with others and learning new tools. It has helped me build more emotional intelligence and lived based on my own strengths. Now, these quotes can go on, and for the sake of time, I can't dwell on them all, but I just wanted you to see the power of what this 1 hour a week has done for families. It's built a sense of community in a time when we were told we had to be separated. Another polling question that we asked people are, what do you value most about the weekly caring conversations? And in these types of polls, each time someone would enter a word, it would get larger. And you see here that they valued the connections the most. They really felt connected, even though it was virtually and we were from all over the United States, they felt really connected. You can listen to me and the others here on this team, but we found that the power and the true spirit of our resiliency project comes from the folks who benefited or participated in the resiliency project, and also who helped drive the way that the whole resiliency project was designed. And so I'm going to now do a video from one of our participants. Her name is Teresa. She's a wonderful person. And in her story, you will hear her mention Sandra Collette, who is with us here today. And she talks a little bit about the caring conversations, the resiliency project as a whole, and particularly the supports that her touchpoint parent gave her.
Was feeling disconnected, and I had been getting emails for caring conversation for a little bit before I had started to join, and so finally I was like, okay, I'm gonna see what this is all about. And this actually, like, one of the things that really came to mind last night about this was community. Like, during the pandemic, we needed a virtual community to stay connected, to not feel alone, to understand the struggles, to see that we're all in this together. And so this became actually a bigger piece. This became like my community, being new to where I'm living, to speaking the language of like that of like the passion, the goals, the generational change through understanding like our strengths and things like that. So this really became really important to me, and I don't think I realized that until last night, the impact it's had on my life this past year. When I had been given a touch point parent, that helped with some medical bills, and I didn't realize how much weight and muscle I was just carrying until I thought I could get back in the swing of things, that the pandemic would eventually end. And when I felt that weight being lifted, to not feel shame, to need help. Also was a really big impact to me. And then my touchpoint parent really having a conversation with me and giving me suggestions how to show up in conversations that I necessarily don't have with the, unlearning systemic racism and things like that. Can I mention who my touchpoint parent was? Is that okay? Sandra Killett was my touchpoint parent in New York, and she just really took her time and really just shared with me how to show up, how to listen, that in the beginning you don't always need something to say, but to hear people's experiences, and then how I perceive that is, in doing that, I'm not denying an experience, that person has a safe, all people have the safe space to share what their experience was, and that really had a significant impact on me.
So you can hear and feel the impact that this project has made for Teresa and her family. And I'll say that it didn't only impact her, it impacted us as well. We learned lots of lessons, and and we were impacted as well. And I'll let Sandra tell you a little bit more about the touchpoint parent piece of our project.
So thank you, Lucretia. Wow, and thank you, Teresa. So what you see now is the touchpoint parents. And they were across the country, west and east. And I'm not going to call their names, but I would just like to say thank you, because they exhibited exactly what was needed to happen for families in order for them to be served by us, and in order for them to celebrate asking for help. And although we were located in different time zones, the convenience of it is that we made ourselves available. And I have to tell you that the families made themselves available as well. And we didn't know, but what we did was there was an impression for now, but trust is for the future. And I think that you're going to hear that and have heard that throughout the presentation of what it was like to be a touchpoint parent. So I think for me, I would move on to what it was like having a collective voice. There was plenty discussion around COVID-19, the inequities during COVID-19, the exposure of what inequities looked like because of COVID-19. And of course, that weighed on touchpoint parents, because a lot of us was already doing work and working with families around inequities, right? Being affected by the child welfare system. Building community was essential. And of course, the current events of racial unrest was happening just in society. So our voices around that issue was really important, listening and hearing from families and also amongst ourselves. And so Tiffany, you've heard her name a lot, but she can give you a little more information about how that collective voice worked for her and throughout the interaction with a touchpoint parent.
Like I said, you guys were different because you guys could provide support, and not just support, right? Like supply that relationship factor that most systems miss, right? And create a space where parents could go and feel that this is our space, right? Like it's not system driven, this is our space.
So, in creating the space to have those conversations, we had to have conversations about shared values, right? And it wasn't as though we directly talked about what are your shared values. It was just through conversations that we were having with the families we were serving that we discovered the shared values. We talked about strengthening families. We talked about what it would be like having concrete supports with no strings attached. Now, someone might say, well, what is no strings attached? Meaning that, there's no obligation. We understood that families were in need, right? Because they were in need before COVID. And that's also something that we shared, because we were also trying to make that point that, COVID didn't bring about all these concrete needs that families were having. They were having these concrete needs way before COVID. And we wanted to show that families really needed these supports prior to COVID and believe it will need it after COVID. And the hope is that, these shared values and strengthening families will last throughout. That's why I'm participating today in this webinar. That's why I was Touchpoint Parent. There was something in it for me as well, right? And ultimately, we wanted to, the goal is humanity. We wanted everyone to have that humanistic feeling and approach as we were serving them. And Takoria will share shared values around how it felt. Thank you.
Impact versus intent. And as a touch point parent, there are a lot of times, not a lot, but there were enough times, because this was a new project, that we had to figure things out, right? We wanted to be very careful about the intent of these concrete supports being available. And as a touch point parent, one of the biggest things that I realized was the importance of group decisions, the importance of sharing situations that may seem problematic or you just weren't quite sure, to have that level set, to have that intent be consistent across the board. And I think what the Alliance did with that was excellent. How we met regularly, how we talked, how we stayed in communication as touch point parents with each other, to also provide that peer support between each other. I think that was an excellent way to go about it.
Thank you, Takoria. Well, I can only tell you that it's extremely rewarding to have participated as a touchpoint parent, and the relationships that were developed. One of my very first families that I served, unfortunately, she passed away, and it wasn't due to COVID, but it was due to a lack of receiving numerous things that we've already talked about, that we've shared. And I will share that her name was Karen, because that impact was throughout the exposure of touchpoint parents and working with families. But I think you've heard almost every single thing that this young lady did not have. And part of that, again, I will say, was concrete supports that she needed before COVID, health issues that she needed, supports before COVID. And I think that throughout all of this, that has impacted a lot of the work that we've done as touchpoint parents and as the Alliance Resiliency Project, because she was one of the first parents that we had the opportunity to serve. And so in connecting and serving families, we had to build trust, and that's not always easy to do. I believe non-judgmental is very easy to do, because I think a lot of us being involved with the child welfare system or associating with the child welfare system have felt judged, and just being really genuine and honest, no matter what the situation was, I think went a long way. And Pasquale is going to share her thoughts about how we carried that out.
Witnessing like grace and space during my more intimate conversations with my touchpoint parent. Like I was mentioning before, I was able to yell, scream, holler, laugh, whatever, express however I felt at that moment, and it was okay, and sometimes it was the other way around, so it kind of worked out for both of us, honestly, and I know that I was there for her a lot, and she was there for me a lot, and we were just there for each other. And that was like the therapeutic value of it. Like we were helping each other during all of that. And so that, like I said before, grace to me is love. And there was lots of love transcending back and forth between both of us, even though we were only on the phone or we were only on Zoom. It was so powerful, to have that touch point parent even across the country.
So thank you. We accomplish things outside of the concrete supports. I don't know that we were necessarily looking for those accomplishments, right? Awakening leadership within families and oneself and their community. So, having families already in a situation prior to even COVID, now looking at ways of how they can now be leaders in their community or increase their leadership in the child welfare system. Sharing leadership throughout the Alliance Resiliency Project is, I'm sure you can see, that's just a no-brainer. It carried out from the resiliency team, the project, to the project team, the caring conversations, into the touch point parents. And then leadership strengths, right? Building on the strength of parenting, bringing about all of those strengths. I don't know that we necessarily knew that that's where we were going to go, but surely that's where we have went. And we stay transforming the system, and parents are eager to do that leadership work. And then last but not least was the acknowledgement of systemic racism. I think, you know, and my learning also was, although racism for me as a Black woman is very absolute, right? There were families that had not had the discussion with their families. And, you know, being able to explore that with families, and helping them communicate that externally in their communities was something that we never in our wildest dreams were trying to do, but we were confronted with it, and we were able to assist and support, and again, have that shared value, have that collective voice, and have that trust where we could explore racism and the current events of what was happening in society. And so for that, I am very thankful, and it has been very rewarding. So never underestimate the peer relationship and what could happen when you're offering something like concrete supports, right? The rewards are ever, just never ending. So thank you for allowing me to share.
There are many possible models for flexible funding that are out there that can support families. And we just wanted to share with you some of the important lessons we learned in the Alliance Resiliency Project. First of all, flexible funding should be flexible as it possibly can be. And that is the way that it can meet needs that other resources cannot meet. Some of the things that Kara described, having your car repaired, virtual school needs. We had a family who had 5 children that were doing virtual homeschooling, and the mother was working from home, and you know, they had one computer, so we were able to help them and equip them with the things they needed to have that environment be less crazy than it was. And obviously dental work often can't wait. It can't wait. And many other things that we were able to do as a result of this. Another lesson that we learned as we considered what might be a workable structure, one of the first things we needed was to set up some basic parameters. And this important first step helped us begin planning realistically who we would reach out to and who started us down that path. Someone asked if we targeted single moms or we didn't target any specific kind of parent, but all parents and all families that were part of our Birth Parent National Network, the Birth Parent Advisory Committee, and the Birth and Foster Parent Partnership were all eligible to be to connect with the Touchpoint parent, all eligible to participate in the caring conversations. So that really helped us define where the funding would go. And then one final thing is that this work was so relationship based, and that dominated every aspect of the project, including the caring conversation calls, the work with the Touchpoint parents, and the strong connection between the Alliance staff and all of our parent partners and parent members of these 3 organizations. And I just want to add, honestly, there's so many stories I wish we could tell you, but there is just not the time to do that today. It has completely impacted my life and changed me forever. It's taught me that there is great value in trusting parents to know their own needs and to find ways to help them meet those needs. And I think Tacoria Jones can express this better than I can. So I'm going to ask us to hear from Takoria as we close today.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. And I have to say thank you to the Alliance and the philanthropic organizations that supported this work, because without agency recognition, this wouldn't have happened. Without saying, these parents need something, let's help them figure out what it is. That is where the value in that relationship is. So I want to give a big thank you to the Alliance for knowing that we as parents can do this. We can help each other, and we can do it successfully. We can do it well. We can do it within range and boundaries and budgets and all those things, that we can do that. So thank you so much to the Alliance and to its supporters for allowing us to be on this journey.
Martha, you're muted.
I just realized that. Thank you. So as we're going to have just a few minutes to take some questions from you, but I wanted to share that we have 4 parent bodies that we work with at the Alliance, and the one that was not part of this project was the Alliance National Parent Partnership Council, which is an advisory council to the Alliance membership. But we are there working every day, kind of living the dream of joining hands with parents to strengthen families and to help prevent child abuse and neglect. We hope you will reach out to us if you want to know more about the work that we do. Our website at ctfalliance.org is worth exploring for many, many resources. Our most recent parent work can be found on the Parent Voice page, and I think that link was already shared. If you would share that link again, that would be great. The full report of the Alliance Resiliency Project can be found at the Parent Voice link, and within the next 2 weeks, we will be able to share the full interviews of the 3 parents that were interviewed here. They shared lots more than we were able to share with you today. And just remember to feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, and I will be glad to connect you with others on our team at the Alliance, depending on what it is that you need and want to pursue.
Thank you all. This is really, we're still recording. This is wonderful. And I know that you're not seeing all the chats, but I've put most of the questions in there and you've done a great job answering them. So thank you. And the link to the Alliance website, as well as to this project, was put into the chat as well. So, you're right. A lot of information in there, a lot of resources. So thank you. This whole, the name of the project and everything you've shared is all incredible. So I will leave it open for a little bit longer if there are any questions. I know that folks can still add to the chat. Otherwise, we can give everybody a few minutes back. But I'm looking at the chat right now and don't see any. But any final last words, or we'll keep it open a minute or two to see if any chat comes in.
Do any of you have anything to add to what you shared? Maybe you forgot something important that you wanted to share.
Well, I think I'll share. I am truly hopeful that this will have some type of an impact on what we do around flexible supports for families, whether it is in individual jurisdictions or nationally, thinking about how we support families, and what policies look like. I mean, there's just an abundance of things that occurred in working with families that, you just know that they need in order to prevent child abuse from occurring. And so, yeah. So for me, that's a dream, that's a wish, that's a pie in the sky, that it changes something.
And Sandra, you had said something before about sort of the can-do attitude that happened during this project. Would you say a little bit about that?
I think from the start, it was always about what we can do. it was never about what we couldn't do. We would make a way. And, that's, I just thought about that, but that's an example of families, right? That is actually everything that a family does. A family is always doing, making it happen, making it work, no matter what they have, what they don't have. It's always a can do. You just have to, right? That's your survival. But the hope is that we will help families to thrive, not just survive, and that will prevent child abuse and neglect.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have something to say. When we started this, we didn't have any idea what would come out of it. And wow, even as we were making this presentation about what we wanted to share and the things that we thought were important for you to know, if you'd like to adapt something like this in your community, we were reliving all of those things, and we were feeling it all over again. And we hope to continue to be able to do, whatever we can for families when we can. But I just want to say thank you to you, Martha, because I know that you're real humble and you won't say out loud, but I'll let you guys know she was the mastermind behind how everything carried out. It was a living, breathing project. We were constantly making it evolve, but we could not have done it without you as our leader. And I know you won't say that for yourself. So I want to say thank you to you from behalf of all the Resiliency Project team. We couldn't have done it without your guidance and leadership and partnership and friendship along the way. So thank you.
Well, that's very generous of you, Lucretia. And it was a project of collaboration across the board. Everybody contributed and everybody had, as we were looking at all the pictures of the Touchpoint parents, I could think of things that each one of them did and each one of them contributed. So I wish that we could personally thank them right here and now. So thank all of you for spending your time with us today. And please contact us if you have any questions or any other further comments.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you all. Really appreciate it. You guys got some good shout outs in the chats, and I appreciate the project, what it's bringing to just kind of the knowledge of what parents really need. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy the rest of the conference, everyone, too.
We will. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.